Yeah, but tons of room for innovation. I remember meeting some people in London, and they're like, "Yeah, I really want to vote for you, Brian. Where do I go?" And then they realized they had to register 6 weeks before with their local council, with the form they send in the mail, with the utility bill, and now they can't vote. And again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist,
And
but
and
it puts
but all of
in,
that civil resistance,
yeah,
right? Like it's all about like, it's all about ensuring that we have much better ways of ensuring that someone is, eligible to vote in crypto systems, right? Like
yeah,
within Synthetics, if you are a staker, we can verify that you are staking. We can verify your address. We don't need to verify you have an identity. We just verify that you are a staker who's participating in the network, and you can vote anonymously, because we know that voting power is going to be exercised. And so, there's the civil resistance. So much of voting processes and overheads, I think, in traditional election systems is about civil resistance and ensuring that votes are fair. We can do away with a lot of that overhead in crypto systems.
yeah. I really think that's interesting. Do you think, just as an aside, this will ever find its way into, you know, democracy and voting actually for political issues?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's no question that when you look at existing systems, legacy systems, and then you overlay crypto and you overlay the ability for people all over the world to kind of get together and coordinate, that is going to be a much more efficient process, right? And so that's going to challenge a legacy system that is being done in a much less efficient way. And I think we've seen this play out over the last 20 years with the internet, right? Anything that was reliant on meat space coordination has kind of been overwhelmed, for good and ill, right? By web-based, internet-based systems.
Yeah, yeah, it will be interesting to see how it plays out. We thought with all of our social channels, and then a lot of people couldn't actually move around. We thought we could get those messages and people would make that kind of independent vote. But I think we still have a little ways to go, and see how that plays out. Just wondering if you have any big learnings, because you've been doing this longer than most, from the governance standpoint, learnings or things to pass on, to other foundations looking to make that transition as far as what works, what doesn't work, whether that's voting frequency or issues or council members, because you're literally learning on the ground.
Yeah, I think maybe even to use this example that you've given of your run for mayor of London, right? One thing that I think we've found is that crypto people are very much single issue voters, right? Like they are really concerned about the impact that regulation and legislation is going to have on crypto and crypto adoption. And so we've seen people pop up who are actually trying to kind of hack the existing legacy systems and turn up and say, if I will run on a platform of pro crypto or crypto support or whatever, and we've had a situation now where crypto people have a lot of wealth, right? So they have money to donate towards these things, and also they are very good at coordinating. You've self-selected for people who are extremely good at coordinating, but you've also self-selected for some interesting things like adversarial thinking. And so one thing that I think that we found with our voting systems and governance processes is that any system that you devise will be attacked, right? People, if it's valuable, people will try and attack it. And so I think that the way that we've built our governance process has been very slow, iterative steps, because if you make large wholesale changes, you open yourself up to unintended consequences. And so I think that within crypto, we have a group of people that are very aware of how governance happens and why, and all the right decisions that they want to see made, and they're willing to kind of put the time and effort in to ensure that those things happen, both in crypto within the protocols that they care about, but also increasingly in the real world as well, which is exciting.
Yeah. Super exciting. And for you, you've found that the best way that you've optimized is to have your token holders vote for council members who then make the majority of the decisions, as opposed to, I know like in California, where I was originally from, it had like Proposition 13, Proposition this, where a lot of times the public would vote on whether there should be a property tax increase, or the public would vote. And not necessarily the bad thing, but sometimes it can get very granular. The House of Commons is near here, and I'm sure my representative is voting all the time. There's, I guess, a fine line, right, between getting the public involved in every decision and then having an elected representative that's maybe in there too long. What's been that optimum for you guys?
So I think we have 3-month epochs, right? As opposed to say in the US where, people have been there for, hundreds of years in some cases, I think, right? And so, we kind of force turnover, right? And we force, people to be reelected regularly, which I think helps with accountability, which is another thing where, you can't have a vote in the US every 3 months. Right, like the amount of overhead and cost hundreds of millions of dollars to run an election. You can't you have to, like, 4 years or 2 years, depending on whether you're talking about Congress or whatever, is like the minimum amount of time that you can do, because if you did it any less, it would just be prohibitively expensive. If you challenge that assumption, and that this is the case for a lot of, in Australia, I think it's 3 years is the average time or whatever, right? If you challenge that assumption and say, well, hang on a second, like, what is the ignoring costs, right? Ignoring the overheads of voting, like, how long should we let people stay in governance, right? Maybe 3 months is too short, but we've been pushing the boundaries of these things to see, maybe it's 6 months, right? And if you ignore costs and you ignore voting overhead, you can elect people for a smaller term, and then force more accountability, because you only had 6 months of decisions to make, and people can look at that, history of 6 months and say, well, wait a second, the 3 biggest things that happened, I can now kind of pay attention and be like, wait, the person that I voted for didn't actually vote in alignment with what I was, wanting to see, and I'll vote for someone else next time who, actually is going to be more aligned with me. So I think those are just some really simple examples of ways that you can kind of improve governance processes by just having better technology and having more efficiency in the system.
And then you personally, as a former semi-benevolent dictator of the Synthetix protocol, now moving to, I guess, a token holder that votes on the DAO, how does that change what you're involved with? Do you, obviously, I guess if you still have tokens, you get to vote these people into place, but yeah, as a Mindshift, do you step aside? Do you find you're talking to the community more? Are you listening more? How has that changed?
So when we first initiated the council, I was politely told not to run for council. There was a sense that I had enough social power within the system that it was not optimal for me to be on the council as well. So I think there were maybe 2 or 3 epochs, so about 9 months, where I didn't run. And then we kind of realized after about 9 months that there was a bit of a disconnect between the contributors who were building the protocol and the community and the people who were governing it. And that we needed someone to kind of be a conduit for communication between those 2 groups. And given that I had historically been that person, I decided to run for council. I think I ran for council now maybe about a year ago. So I've been on the council for about a year. I was just re-elected. So hopefully the interesting thing is I actually don't vote for myself. I vote for other people, because the optimal situation, if I think I'm going to get voted in, is actually to vote for someone who I think will agree with me. And then I've got 2 people on the council so there's some interesting game theory about, how you vote and what have you within the synthetic system. But the end result is that I'm one of 8 people on the council, and regularly I'm on the wrong side of votes where I say, I don't think this is a good idea, and it gets voted in anyway.